Hey guys, we're back on the couch with Norman at Norm's Rare Guitars, and before we kick off with questions, our buddy Carlos Guitarlos called in on this and said he thought it was a great idea. We always like to give him a shout out, so...
Oh yeah, and let me tell you about Carlos Guitarlos. He's like one of the hidden gems in LA. So if you look on the internet and check out some of his music, he's one of the most original R&B blues artists, and he's been sort of in the underground in LA for so many years.
Yeah.
He's a great guitar player, very original, great songwriter, great vocalist. He's something that, you guys outside of LA may not have heard of. But Carlos Guitarlos, he's something special.
He's a local legend, isn't he, really?
Absolutely. Yeah. And he's a nut, like most of our friends, And there was another guy asking about King Lizard, Gizzard. Or
you and Mundy said, are you guys fans of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard?
No, but I'm a fan and friends of King Cotton. And I know he's got close. A lizard gizzard that he sometimes pulls out at his gigs. So, he's been thrown out of a lot of clubs for pulling out his lizard gizzard.
He's playing at the Viva Cantina, right?
Yeah, but he's another one who you got to check out. I played with King Cotton for many years, and he's like one of the great R&B blues legends in L.A. So he and Carlos, those are two guys you ought to check out.
Definitely. All right, on to business.
Serious questions.
Brian Gullidge asked the question, was there ever a guitar that fooled you, or have you ever been almost made a bad deal on a good fake?
Actually, the truth of the matter is I really have not, because I'm very careful. If there's something that I think, we have guitars that are sort of presented to us that are absolutely yes, and there's some guitars that are absolutely no. Yeah. And if there's something even in that gray area, if there's something that, spooks me a little bit, I just let it go. I just don't want anything that has a question mark as to its authenticity. I mean, there are guitars that have had modifications and stuff like that, which, but as soon as a guitar is modified in any way, it sort of makes the antenna go up and kind of, I want to, it makes me look a little more carefully. Yeah. And, we can live with a couple modifications sometimes if it's a good guitar at a good deal and a good instrument. Yeah. But if it's something where we're not sure, we just stay away. And I recommend doing the same. Yeah. And if you're going to buy something from a store or whatever, make sure that it's a store that's willing to put whatever it is in writing, and, that way, you'll be sure to get what you're supposed to be getting.
And that's something I know about you, because I bought a lot of guitars off you through the years, and if there's ever anything that's spurious or might be wrong, Norm is the first person to say, look, have a real good look at this. This I'm not sure about, which he'll admit if he's not sure, if a pickup's been changed or something. So, and that actually makes our job easier in the store, because if we have stuff that's completely issue free, then we're very happy passing it along to the customers.
Well, we try to look, again, there can be an issue or two, but if it's going to be represented as something, it should be what it's represented as. In fact, we had a buddy of ours who's a famous studio guitar player came in yesterday, and he had a late 50s black ES345. And the guitar on the inside, on one of the F-holes, there was some kind of some spray inside the guitar. Yeah. Now, black is a very difficult color to tell if it's right or it's wrong. So, so I'm always a little bit skeptical. But there were a number of other modifications on the guitar as well. But, if it was original black finish, he wanted to price it at a pretty much a premium. Yeah. And, it's something that I wasn't comfortable representing. I'm not even 100% sure that it's not original black, but there's enough that makes me uncomfortable
little
about
things
it
like the spray in the
that I just had to say I wouldn't feel comfortable representing it or putting my name behind it.
Yeah. Mojo Rising says, Norm, do you remember the first guitar you ever sold at your store?
Well, I remember one thing that was kind of interesting. Back in the day, I had a friend of mine, Scott Borden, who used to work with me, and Scott would stay at the store a lot of the times when I went out on my guitar safaris trying to find guitars, and I would get in my car and drive all over, and whatever lead I had, I'd go chase it down. And one of the first guitars we sold, and probably to the first big rock star, was James Taylor. And I wasn't in the store. He bought a J45 or a J50,
Yeah.
and I was disappointed that I missed him. But
course,
Scott
yeah.
was probably James' biggest fan, you
Yeah.
know, so he was just stoked that James came to the store. And you know, prior to me opening the store, I used to buy and sell guitars out of my apartment in Sherman Oaks. So that's where I first met Robbie Robertson, and Robbie brought Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell
Right.
and Robin Ford and all these people into me. And sort of by word of mouth, you know, there was no really a store that carried a lot of vintage stuff. So they were all recommended by word of mouth to me,
Yeah.
and they would come to my apartment. Then eventually it got to the point where it became a business, and I had to open a store.
Yeah, it got too big to do out of your apartment anymore.
and we
right?
opened our first store was under 500 square feet. It was a tiny little store,
I remember.
and I, you know, wasn't sure if a year later we would be in business. I didn't know if there would be, you know, a demand for this stuff. And I went, you know, man, if I could only gross $500 a day, and don't forget the prices of guitars was really low at that
Yeah.
time, you know, that I would be okay, and I'd make enough money to, you know, be able to continue doing what I was doing.
And there was only 500 square feet. I mean, there were guitars everywhere in that
Right.
place. I mean,
And-
hanging from the ceiling, hanging
Yeah,
from the walls.
there was a time I remember where we had about 7 or 8 pre-CBS Strats on the wall, and it was your choice for $750. So those were the
Can you
days, and we
imagine?
still have some pictures from
Wow.
the old store, you know, and it's, you know, it's really a mind blow when you think about, you know, what has happened to prices and how much the world has recognized the quality of these vintage guitars.
Right. We got a question from Eric Zimmer. Are pre-truss rod vintage Martin guitars risky in terms of neck problems? This is something we come up with a lot.
There is, you know, a lot that can be done with pre-truss rod guitars. The Martins, they were reinforced, and what you do to straighten out the neck is you heat press it. There's like a metal plate that you put the neck on, you heat it, and it makes the neck pliable. And then what you do is, as it cools off, it locks in to a straighter profile. And also neck sets. A lot of older Martin guitars, just with all that pressure for so many years, the neck kind of sinks into the body a little bit, and they need a neck set, which
Yeah.
if it's done properly by somebody who knows what they're doing, and Joel, my repairman here, is very
That's
good,
great.
he's quick, and he
Yeah.
knows what to do, it's not really a problem. I mean, there's so many guitars that I've seen
Yeah.
that people have, and the action is so bad that they're totally unplayable. But with a neck set and everything, it becomes a whole new instrument.
Fantastic. Joel actually did mine when I was 54, and it's fantastic.
Right. I mean, you know, for a
Great
guitar to
job.
really be at its optimum, there should be a fair amount of bridge saddle so that when the
Yeah.
strings break over the saddle, there's a tension there.
Plenty
and
to
that
go at.
It,
Yeah.
it makes the guitars really sound good. When you see those guitars where the bridge is shaved down and there's almost no saddle left, you know, it's
Rattle and
you're-
hum. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not really getting the maximum out of the guitar, so you want to get something that has the right amount of break over the saddle.
So a neck set is really the way to go.
Neck set's
Yeah.
good, and also if the neck happens to be bowed, you know, the truss rod would
can-
straighten out a bow, but the heat press takes care of that.
Okay.
And we're familiar with most of that stuff. We can make like 99% of the Martins play.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not something, and I've had people tell me, well, I had this guitar and I was unplayable and I sold it, and I'm sorry I sold it because it could have been
It
dealt
could have been
with.
fixed. Yeah.
Right.
That's a shame. It's got to be a bummer. I've got a question from Christopher Petrides. Hello, Norm. How do you manage to control the humidity and temperature levels having such a huge vintage guitar collection?
Well, the one thing is being in California, it's still a kind of a mild climate. You know, in Miami, the humidity is terrible. Here,
Yeah.
it's not so bad. You know, guitars are primarily wood, other than Travis Beans or Ovations or things like that that are either some type of plastic or metal. So wood expands and contracts, and you want to keep the climate pretty much controlled within a reasonable amount.
Yeah.
You want to go from extreme heat to extreme cold. You want to go from snow skiing and then take your guitar and put it near the heater in your place. That would be really bad.
So any change,
Yeah, you
any
want to
dramatic
keep it,
change is bad.
and a lot of times, like if you were to buy a guitar and it was sent to you and it's coming across country, sometimes it's a good idea to let it sit for a little while before you unpack the
Yeah.
box and let it,
That's a good
just
idea.
kind of chill and kind of.
I think we keep it around 70 in here, right?
Yeah,
69,
and
70.
even if it goes to 85 or 45, even,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world. The main thing is when it's in an extreme, when it happens quickly, that's where the problem happens. Sometimes people have a guitar and they leave it in their trunk and they go out shopping for 3 hours and it's 100 degrees out.
Yeah.
That's a very bad idea.
Yeah.
So, but in general, the well-made guitars are going to last a real long time. And with any kind of just reasonable care, they'll be fine.
They'll be
And,
fine.
with a little maintenance every once in a while to, do an adjustment and a setup and all that is going to prevent you from having like major things that go wrong with it.
So no extreme temperature changes or humidity changes.
So like I have a warehouse with a lot of guitars and, because it's darker in the warehouse, it it never gets too warm and too cold, so
It's real constant.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I haven't had really a problem with that. There's some guitars that were made like in the late '60s, some arch tops and stuff, where the pick guards, whatever they were using, the lacquer that they were shooting over the pick guards and whatever plastic they were using,
Cellulose.
and also the insides of cases sometimes, the glue that they used, that sometimes would cause problems where the pick guard would start to shatter.
Right, it gives
or-
off a little gas or
or
something as it
or the pickups
decomposes.
might turn green or something like
Right.
that. So those guitars, for whatever reason, that era, are a little bit more sensitive.
Interesting. All right, let's have a go at this one. Calzo Houdini writes, what was the last Les Paul that Slash purchased from you? He's been showing pictures of it on Facebook and Instagram.
Well, Slash has he likes dark sunburst Les Pauls, and he likes certain weight, certain neck profile, and all that. And when we get stuff, we have certain clients of ours that are our friends that we sort of know what they like, and when something comes in that we feel is within that range, we'll give them a call and all that. And he bought, I think it was an R8 that he bought from us, which was a very nice guitar, but it had all the. He liked the neck, he liked the weight. There was just came in and checked it out, loved the way it sounded, and so sometimes we'll trade with these artists, and we have memorabilia buyers, so we get a lot of memorabilia, and we have a lot from famous artists and that kind of thing. So it makes it great for the
He was
artists.
obviously really pleased with it because he's been putting pictures of
I
it
know.
everywhere. Yeah.
Well, but the cool thing is that when we do these trades with the artists, they trade something that they're not using anymore.
Yeah.
And to them, they would rather have something that's new inspiration, and for us, it gives us something that we can sell that was actually used by the artist.
Yeah. It was personal to them. Yeah.
There's two types of things that we get from time to time. Memorabilia, which is stuff that was actually used by the artist, where there's actually a history of the artist playing it. And then we have stuff sometimes where we get charities that have asked us to have some people sign, like, we'll take an inexpensive guitar and we'll have them we call it a signer, where they sign the
for
guitar. They've
auction.
never really used the guitar, but it's still, there's a relationship with the artist just because of the signature, but it's more of like an easel,
It could be a new guitar and just have it with a lot of signatures on it.
Yeah, so I mean, certain people like that, and they want to, show that they have something that was signed, but you're basically just buying the signature. But a real piece of memorabilia has history with the artist.
Yeah. And usually when there's memorabilia that comes from here, there's a lot of pictures that go with it. People playing it on stage. And,
We try to do that and get as
testimonials and
much,
stuff.
or sometimes we'll do a little video with the artist in here as well, signing the guitar if it's going to be signed. I mean, we got some stuff like from Melissa Etheridge where she signed it for us and traded for some stuff. And we don't necessarily like to put signatures on really nice guitars, but a lot of times they can be taken off if you really wanted to do that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people want, they have a favorite artist and they want something that's associated with the artist.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. You know what? Barry Hoon wants to know, what's the difference between P90s and humbuckers, and a bit about the history of them, please.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, Gibson has had a number of different pickups in their guitars, from the Charlie Christian pickup, which was on the ES 150s and 250s, and a few other guitars that they used them on occasion. And then they had the P90s, which is a single coil pickup, which is a terrific sounding pickup.
Yeah.
But what the reason they called the humbucking is because sometimes through the electric lights or different signals would come through, and you'd start hearing like some noise or
If
frequency.
you're close to your amp or whatever.
Sure, and you
yeah.
might pick up a radio signal
Yeah.
or something like that. And what the humbucking does is it cancels the hum, so you can play at a loud volume and not be hearing some radio station from 20 miles away or something like that. So, and they all produce a different sound. So, what's better, P90s or humbuckings? There is no real answer to that because P90s sound fantastic, the Charlie Christian pickup sounds fantastic, humbucking sound fantastic, and there's variations of all these things. So, people say, what's better, this or that? There is no better. I mean, if there's something that is malfunctioning, that's bad. But if there's something that's working,
It's working
and it's got a different sound, even some of the guitars, some of the folks have asked questions about like K's and Silvertones and stuff like that. Now, these are not super well-made guitars, but they have their own sound. And the pickups, lipstick pickups, the
Gold foil pickups.
the gold foil pickups,
Yeah.
they have a unique sound, and they don't sound like everything else that you hear. Unfortunately, the quality of the instruments is not the same as a lot of like the Gibsons and Fenders and Gretsch and whatever, D'Angelico,
Quality-wise,
Stromberg,
yeah.
whatever.
But they
so-
all have their
but
characteristics.
they have something, so that's why people collect guitars, because each one does a little something different, and when you pick up something different, it inspires you to play in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, when you play a Fender, you're going to play differently than you would with a Gibson.
Nice clean lines, and sometimes you pick up one of these old K's or a gold foil pickup, and you've got this Rycooder kind of vibe going
Right.
on, and all this stuff.
Rye
Yeah.
had a lot of those type of guitars. I know Jackson Brown
Cooder
likes a lot of
casters, yeah.
those.
Yeah.
And
Our friend Val McCallum's got a few of those
Right.
swampy sounding guitars.
and my buddy J.J. Cal, who had passed away, he
bless
loved
him.
to kind of experiment with stuff to just try to get some different sounds.
Yeah.
And so there is no good or bad. It, depending on the tune and how something lays in a track or, just works with performance.
Some things just perfect for
Yeah,
a certain
something could
song,
be really
right?
kind of crappy, but
Yeah.
just work perfectly in a certain tune.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, last one for this little bit. This kind of horrible question. Brian
Well, we get
Savage. Brian Savage says, "Okay, Norm, fire breaks out and you can only save one guitar. Which one is it?"
Well, probably most likely I go down in the fire, like the captain goes down with the ship, because
Yeah.
I'll be running from a 335, like a blonde dot like 335, to a Sunburst Les Paul, to a 34 Martin Herringbone D28,
See how many you
to a
can
triple
fit on the-
45. By the time I figured out which guitar it was, I'd probably go up in smoke. So,
So Brian, that's it. We don't know. He's going down in flames
sorry,
one way or another.
captain goes down with the ship.
Yeah.